Hey everybody, Marcus C. Williams here. So the other night I was out at a anti-violence, anti-hate, something or some other thing meeting, I guess you'd call it, out on Clarissa Street. So not too far from my house or whatever the case is. So I go over there to go check it out. So they've got a lot of different police chiefs from around the surrounding areas of the city and around the outskirts of the city. So basically Monroe County area, whatever the case is, right? So they got some of them down there. They got the acting police chief, Chief Smith, for the city, and they had like one of the what do you call it, deputy sheriffs? No, undersheriff. The undersheriff, yeah, called him the undersheriff, was there. Yeah. So we also had a couple of actually, one of our senators was there, current senators, let me say seated senators, for the thing was there. Senator Cooney, he was there. We had Sandra Dorley, who is our district attorney. She was there. And then they had some ministers from a couple of different places. And they also had some guy, I didn't even know who he was. Some guy, I honestly, I got no beef with this guy, but he had written a 5-minute intro for himself. So after that, I kind of couldn't take him too seriously. I mean, anybody that has a 5-minute intro for themselves is, I don't even gotta say anything, right? Like, you guys get it. Anyway, so there was a couple of ministers from the Nation of Islam there. They had some, what do you call them? They had some rabbis there. I think 1 or 2 rabbis were there. So everybody spoke a little bit, right? So they spoke about the crime and how there's a rise in anti-Semitism and stuff like that, and how we should love each other and all of this and all of that, right? That was the big message of everything, is everybody needs to love each other more. And you guys know I'm all on board with that, because I'm for unity, not division. So that was a good conceptual message, right? But let me tell you about where this church is. So where this church is, I think, last year, not even a whole year ago yet, there was a shooting where this lady got shot up in her car, right? Literally, you can spit and hit it. Like, you know how people joke and they say you can spit and hit something? No, you can literally spit from the church and hit the spot where the lady got shot up in her car in front of her children. In front of her children. Do you think that they brought that up one time? Not at all. Not at all. So the interesting thing to me was this. All of these people, so many of these people that were speaking, none of them were from my neighborhood. They're in my neighborhood. They're talking about the crime. And as you guys know, I talk about the crime all the time. But they're in my neighborhood. They're not from my neighborhood. And they're not talking about my neighborhood as if crime isn't a serious issue in my neighborhood. And if you guys follow me at all or watch my other videos, crime is a serious issue in my neighborhood, my district, and in my community. Man, listen, let me tell you how I was hotter than a salamander in the middle of a fire on a raft on a fucking ocean with the sun beating down on them at 12 noon, man. Let me tell you. Listen, I was offended. Not only because the people that were there that were talking weren't from my community, and you want to talk about some anti-violence, stop the violence, stop hating this and that, and come into my neighborhood, into my community, which I've lived in my district pretty much my whole life. Outside of 5 years of my life when I was really teeny tiny, I've lived in this district my whole life. Okay? You gonna come to my neighborhood and you're not even gonna talk about the stuff that's going on in my neighborhood or the changes that need to be made to improve what's going on in my neighborhood? So let's get into some of the speakers, right? So boom. I like the overall concept of the message, right? I like the love. Love everybody. Everybody love, right? So that's what it, how's it go? Everybody love everybody. So I like that idea. That's an extremely good concept. But when you say it out of your mouth and then you don't actually practice it, it's extremely problematic. Extremely problematic. And I'm going to give a couple of examples about that in a minute. So stay tuned. It's coming up. So this one guy spoke, so they've got the Nation of Islam people spoke. First, one of the ministers spoke. Then the Nation of Islam guy spoke. Then they had the rabbi speak, and then they had this other guy, doctor somebody, whoever it is, some Muslim dude from I don't know where, who I don't even know, right? So he lives out in, I think he said Brighton or somewhere. Like, him and the rabbi live right next to each other, right? So you're coming into my neighborhood, right? An impoverished community, and you live out in Brighton, and you wrote a 5-minute monologue, introduction for yourself for somebody else to read about you, like you're so everything. Like, you would have thought with that level of an introduction, he would have given some sort of a nod to the actual community that he was in. We didn't get one. But do you want to know what the most offensive thing about the whole event was? The most offensive thing was that we're in a church. We're in a church, and not one person talked about the anti-Christian hate that continues to permeate our nation. Nobody talked about it. So I was feeling some type of way, right? Like, now, like, I know that a lot of you guys, like, you guys have different religions and stuff if you follow me or whatever the case is, but many of you guys are Christians, okay? Or have Christian origins, right? So there's been a ton of anti-Christian activity and anti-Christian hate that continues to go on, not just in our nation, but across the world. And nobody's talking about it. Here we are sitting in a church, and you're going to talk about, oh, there's a rise in anti-Semitism. Nobody's talking about the rise of anti-Christian hate. And we saw a couple weeks ago now, they had a church in Brooklyn. Church was broken into, vandalized. They cut the head off of one of the statues and stole a relic that was worth $2 million. Are you going to tell me that that's not an act of anti-Christian hate and violence? Seriously? Nobody said boo. We had the shooting in California where the Chinese dude went in and shot up a Taiwanese Methodist church. I'm pretty sure they were Methodist. Don't quote me on that, but it was a church and they were Christian. So same thing, right? And nobody said anything about that. We had the day before that thing, we had 50 Christians murdered in cold blood in Nigeria. Okay, murdered in cold blood. And apparently then, this is from the news, like, this shocked me after the fact that I found this out. 22 of them were infants. I just like, not small children, like, we're talking about babies, right? Like, that's insane. That's insane. Like, I'm not, that level of violence is, like, beyond me. Like, innocent infants, like, that's extremely upsetting to me. But in this church where they were talking about violence and crime and anti-hate this and anti-hate that, they didn't bring up the anti-Christian hate. And we continue to see the anti-Christian hate rise in America. Nobody's saying anything about it. Nobody will speak up on it. Now they're trying to do some stuff to destroy the Southern Baptist, okay, people, after they've already destroyed the Catholic Church. Now, you'll say, okay, well, Marcus, a bunch of people have had issues and have been molested by the church or whatever the case is, and this is a very big deal to me. Very extremely big deal to me, because I just, like, that is something that extremely bothers me, right? So that's for another video. We'll talk about that. I talk about human trafficking and sex abuse and stuff like that a lot, because that just does not fly with me. It's extremely upsetting, and I'm gonna keep going before I get too upset even thinking about it. But anyway, so now they're trying to tear the Southern Baptists apart, which is a very strong denomination in the United States if you're watching from abroad. So they've already destroyed the Catholic Church, right? Even the Pope is up there saying some crazy stuff, talking about, oh, well, they're just trying to modify for the times. No, you do not change religion for the times. When religion is about tradition, that's not how that works. But anyway, back to the destruction of Christendom in our nation and how nobody speaks about it. Okay? Whenever there's anti-Christian attacks in America, nobody says anything. They can shoot up the churches, and when somebody says something about it, oh, it was at this church or it was at that church, but never the fact that it is a church, that these are anti-Christian activities, right? These are Christian hate activities, okay? Nobody talks about them like that, right? So on the TV, in the news or whatever, you don't see anything positive about the Christian religion anymore. Okay, you can't pray in schools. They tried to take God out of the school. They don't even want you to say the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Because it's one nation under God, and they don't want you to say that. So I got a lot to say about that, but I digress. So continuing on with the thing, nobody brought it up. Nobody brought it up. Not one person said one word. So anyway, so the police chiefs got up there and they were talking about the different aspects of the crime and stuff that they're seeing and going on about. And it dawned on me that none of the police chiefs were actually willing to say what needed to be said. And I understand this, so before you get too up on them, understand that because of their job, mostly police chief is a political office, right? So like most of them are either elected or they're chosen by their political leaders in their area. They don't really like rise through the ranks and then hit that if somebody retires or something like that. In certain places you can, but where I am, it's more of a political thing. And I think regardless, police chief of most places across the country is still pretty political position, so they can only really say so much. Plus different agreements with different police unions, so being an active, because that's really brass, so brass can kind of say whatever they want, but they still can't really. But anyway, I digress. So back to it. So none of them really said what needed to be said, which was the issues that we're seeing from the crime are really because of the way that the policies and laws have been put in place. But the undersheriff, he got very, very, very close to saying it. And I respect him a lot for that. That was a real big deal to me. That meant a whole lot. It meant a whole lot to me that he almost really said it. But the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, this crime, this violence is really because of the laws that our elected officials in Albany have put together, which basically do not punish crime anymore. So they did bail reform. So bail reform came out about April 2019, right? And it was implemented January-ish 2020. So they edited it a little bit July 2020, and they made it worse. Yeah, they made it worse. So the concept behind that is they don't want to spend so much money on the prisons. They don't want to pay so much money to incarcerate people, but they did it under the guise that, oh, well, some poor people who commit crimes aren't able to afford bail. So you ask me, was bail reform necessary? Should something have been done? Absolutely. Could they have done better? Should they have done better? Absolutely. Do I believe honestly and earnestly that they did this purposefully to harm us as individuals, especially in impoverished and high impact communities? 100%. Because why? Why? Because after seeing the negative adverse impact that these things are having in communities like mine and other communities across the state that are high crime or impoverished areas where the crime has continued to go up since the inception and implementation of this, they still choose not to do anything to adjust it, edit it, or repair it so that it will actually be able to hold repeat violent offenders. We got people out here with 5 gun charges, still not in jail. Still not in jail, 5 gun charges. We got people out here with 4 or 5 different assaults, still not in jail. Still not in jail. So they're not holding these criminals, so these criminals get back out on the street, and then the criminals are like, oh, well, I don't get punished. I do whatever bleep, 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 I want to, right? So yeah, so then that only encourages other people to say, well, they didn't get in trouble, so maybe I could do it and I won't get in trouble, right? That's really increasing the criminality and increasing the culture of crime in my community and in my city and in my state. So it's abhorrent that our elected officials refuse to do anything about this. My opponent, who I'm running against for 137th Assembly District in Rochester, New York, which also covers Gates, he said, oh, it wasn't him. He didn't have anything to do with it because he wasn't in office when they signed that bill. Here's the deal. For 2 years, you've been in there, bro, and you haven't done a good golly gosh thing to edit it, amend it, or even propose something to hold these repeat violent offenders, and then had the nerve to bring some people to a town hall for our community from Syracuse Unchained or Uncharted or whatever the hell they're called that worked to push for less is more and the bail reform to begin with. And he signed on to the less is more, which basically is allegedly, what do you call it? Parole reform. There we go. Allegedly parole reform. But that's a whole crock of crap for another video. We'll talk about that some other time. Anyway, I digress. I'm just giving you a little bit of background on the issues that we're experiencing and why we're experiencing them and how it's actually our elected officials' issues, right? So, boom. So I'm there and I'm watching this whole thing go down. And when the undersheriff got up there and spoke, I was like, okay, yeah. Then we had Senator Cooney got up there and spoke, and it was interesting because he was like, yeah, if you don't like what your people are doing that are in office, well, you should vote. And this was actually an answer to a question that I had asked, because we had to write the little questions on the cards. I said, well, why isn't anybody holding our elected officials accountable? And he said, yeah, well, if you don't like stuff that's going on in your community, you should reach out, call, go visit your elected officials, whatever. And when there's an election, if you don't like what they're doing, you should vote them out. I said, shoot, I should have recorded what he said, because that's my campaign commercial right there. You know, that's it. If you don't like what they're doing, vote them out. That's exactly what needs to happen. All of these people need to be voted out. And let me put a shameless plug in here. You guys, if you live in Rochester in the area, vote Marcus C. Williams for 137th Assembly District, okay? And I'm going to tell you this. Right now in New York State, everybody vote different, vote row B, because that's where the people are going to be that are going to be able to actually make a difference. We need more people to get out this year and vote, and we need them to vote row B. So anyway, so when he said that we should hold them accountable and vote them out, I'm like, that's true. But you're in office right now, bro. I don't have any issues with him. He's actually always been very responsive to me. We talk sometimes and stuff like that. Solid, right? But I need more from my elected officials who are in office now. I need more from my elected officials who are holding the seat. Because if you don't have a seat right now, you can scream to the heavens or till the cows come home. If your elected officials aren't doing anything, nothing's going to get done. So they've got time to pass everything else underneath the sun, but they can't do anything about actually doing something about the crime. And it was very frustrating being there and watching this whole stuff go down. So towards the tail end, they had one of the representatives there from the county legislature, and she wanted to talk about the Reawaken America tour. So I don't know if I actually did a video on that. I probably should. Anyway, long story short, the Reawaken America tour is a Christian event. So here we go with this anti-Christian hate BS again that I was telling you guys about. So it's a Christian event, you know, it's supposed to be like a revival. Like each day, it's 2 days long. Each day has like 3 hours of prayer and all types of other stuff there, a whole bunch of pastors and stuff like that. But it does have some controversial speakers who are politically controversial coming, like Michael Flynn is coming. I'm not a big fan of him, but for various reasons, I'll do a separate video on it later. But Eric Trump, who is Eric Trump, right? Like, he's a Trump, but he's not a Trump. Even his wife is more of a Trump than he is. No offense, but just giving you an idea. Roger Stone, who's played both sides of the political aisle since before I've been born, right? So I don't really necessarily care for these people. But I like the idea of the revival. I do like the idea that it's going to be a patriotic event. I do like the idea that there are going to be a lot of good people there that are not only patriotic, but care about the Lord and Jesus. So to me, that's a really big thing. We don't have a lot of events where a lot of Christians that are also patriots can get together. And for me, this is, even if I don't like a couple of the speakers, because there's going to be like 60 speakers there, you guys. There's going to be like 60 speakers. So like, these are like 3 or 4 speakers. And like most of them are going to be like pastors or preachers or ministers and stuff like that, religious people, stuff like that. But the county legislative person, she was like, oh, well, we want to cancel the Reawaken America tour. It's about hate, and it's anti-Semitism, and it's anti-LGBTAQ, whatever the letters are, the alphabet people. Don't get mad on me. They change and add something every week. I want to be respectful or whatever you call it, but I'm not able to keep up. So the alphabet people. So anti-alphabet people, anti-this, anti-black, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Excuse me? Anti-Semitism. Mike Flynn is way pro-Israel, you know? And for him to be both a retired general and an American politician, I use both of those terms lightly, he's a little too pro-Israel for me, right? Like, he's getting paid by them almost. That's how much. So for you to say that it's an anti-Semitism, so you must be talking about Christendom then, right? You're saying that Christendom doesn't like Jews? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Because you're full of malarkey, because I never heard Trump say anything about them. Trump loves them, okay? Jared Kushner is one of them. They've got plenty of deals. Trump almost brought peace to the Middle East, like the what do you call them? The Jacob Accords. Okay, look it up. So it's insane. Like, he got a whole bunch of nations to recognize Israel as a state that haven't even recognized Israel since its inception as being its own country. Like, are you serious? So you're saying that these people are anti-Semitic? Which part? Is it the Christian part? Because clearly it's not these speakers, because none of these alleged controversial speakers have ever said anything like that. So how would you get that, right? And now, again, you say it's anti-alphabet people, right? How would you get that? I've never heard them say anything anti-alphabet people. Not one time. And they talk a lot of junk, but I've never heard them say that. Then you say, oh, well, it's anti-black. Prove it to me. Prove it to me. Prove it to me. I'm black. I know who these people are. I've listened to these people before. I know that they're not about what you're saying that they're about, but you're telling me that they're about that. And I said, because I had to say something, because I was not going to let this go on, because really it's anti-Christian hate. And this is what I'm trying to impart on all of you guys. They're disguising all of these issues as them being something else, but a large part of it is to steal our religion away from us and to move us away from God and the Lord and our religious practices, so that we can be more easily deceived and that we will fall under the boot of the government even more heartily and those in power. Okay? Man, it makes me so frustrated, you guys. But anyway, and I'll continue. So it's anti-black? What have they ever said that's anti-black? There are black people on the poster that are going to be speaking. Where is the anti-black? You know, Alan West, one of the top Republicans in the country, you know, black man, former, I think he's lieutenant, right? I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. Maybe a colonel, right? Anyway, so he is also the head of the Republican Party in Texas, and I believe he's the head of the Black Caucus as well. And he spoke at one of the events, you know? Like, and I've listened to him speak a lot. I like Alan West. He's really good. If you don't know who he is, check him out. That dude's the truth right there. Okay? But this stuff isn't anti anybody. It's pro-America. It's pro-Christianity. Like, what's wrong with that, right? Then they want to say, oh, well, it's, what they say? They said it's Christian nationalism, right? I said, well, hold up. What is a nationalist, right? A nationalist is a person that puts the values and virtues and, basically the important things to them are what's important to their country before other nations, right? So the priorities of one's nations are above the priorities of somebody else's nation. And that just makes sense. India's nationalist, England's nationalist, China's nationalist, Japan's nationalist, almost every country in the European Union is nationalist. Most countries across the world are nationalist, because if you don't put the interests of your country first, then you're not going to have much of a country. Okay? But I continue, right? So that's what nationalism is. Nationalism, patriotism, same side of the same coin. So you can't be a nationalist in America because you love your country, because you love America, because you want America to succeed. You explain that to me, how that's a problem. Okay? And then they say, oh, well, it's Christian. So I'm a Christian. And I have nationalist beliefs. Does that make me a Christian nationalist? What the hell even is that? What are you trying to, now you're trying to define that as a problem? You're a problem. That's anti-Christian hate. And somebody needs to start talking about it. And God damn it, I'll ring the damn bell all day long on that. Okay? I'm proud to be Christian and I'm proud to be an American, and nobody's going to take that away from me. Okay? Here's the deal, right? As far as Christianity goes and patriotism goes, our country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Now you're telling me that it's wrong? They've also told us that the Constitution is not absolute, according to the president, who took an oath to uphold the Constitution. So we're not even going to talk about it, but we see the way that they think. Okay? So when she said that I stood up, I had to talk, I said, listen. I said, check this out. I said, did you call anybody from the event to ask them what is going to happen at the event, to ask them what they're going to be speaking about or anything like that? They said no. I said, have you talked to anybody that's been to any of the other events that they've held, because they've been doing a tour across the nation? They said no. I said, well, how did you get this idea and this concept that it's anti all of these things? They didn't have an answer. And then they're like, oh, well, we called the people to tell them that we wanted it to cancel it. Well, what you wanted to cancel it for what reason? You didn't even know. You didn't even know. You didn't even attempt to know. You didn't even ask. You know? So, and then one of the people, again, who does not live in the city, bro. One of these preachers that does not live in the city. Remember how I told you that none of these folks live in the city? None of these people live in my neighborhood. It's like, oh, well, they should hold it out at the Dome Center. The Dome Center is more where white people are, right? And I'm like, but you live out there. You live out there. What do you mean? You live out there by the Dome Center. What are you talking about? And why do they need to move their event? And I said, and the only people that I've heard talk about inflicting violence or acting up or anything like that is the people who want to protest. I haven't heard that word one from any attendees. Not one word from any attendees about that. Not one. Not a one. Not one word from any attendees. The only people that are trying to talk about they'll act up are the people that are allegedly protesting it. I said, that sounds familiar. That sounds like the same BS when those protesters destroyed my business corridor and the business corridor around the corner from me and basically my whole neighborhood, set all the police cars on fire and tore up everything in our community, so that even babies couldn't even get formula or diapers from Family Dollar because they tore it up and snatched everything up out of there and burnt it to the ground. So, I mean, listen, this whole thing was supposed to be about love, right? The event was supposed to be about love. And I said tolerance. And they're like, oh, well, the one minister's like, I don't have any tolerance. But you were just telling me about preaching love. And you don't have any tolerance? What's wrong with these people? What's wrong with them? That's wrong. That's unchristian-like. Okay? And then we wonder why we have so many issues with Christendom right now. We have so many issues and they keep trying to tear us down because of people that think like that. You don't got no tolerance. You don't even talk to the people. You don't know. You don't know. You just saying stuff because you heard it from somebody and you think it sounds good or it sounds cute or it serves to push this whole promotion of division in our nation, which isn't even a real thing, but certain people keep promoting the division because they try to tell you, oh, blacks are against whites and whites are against blacks and all of this and all of that, when we're not. And if we had a second and we were actually able to get together, poor blacks and poor whites and working class whites and working class blacks, and get together and fellowship, they'd understand that we all have the same common interests, the same commonalities, and are all concerned about the same issues. Inflation is hurting us all, okay? Schools are going bad and going wrong and teaching wrong stuff to children. That impacts us all. We're all concerned about that, okay? We're all concerned how we're going to feed our family as these food shortages continue to grow. We're all concerned about How are we going to afford to live, our houses, taxes, stuff like that? We all share this commonality because we're all Americans. We need to be united, but they want to do everything they can to keep us divided, and we deserve better from our elected officials. We deserve better from our ministers. We deserve better from our teachers. We deserve better from anybody in a place of authority and power, because we need to be promoting unity, not inclusion, not equity, actual unity, okay? That's not what they're teaching. They're trying to figure out every single which way to divide us. Divide you on gender. Divide you on gender conceptualization, whatever the hell that is, right? Divide us on this. Divide us on that, okay? How tall are you? Oh, you're the wrong skin color. Oh, you've got blue eyes. Oh, you're size 13 shoe. You know what? I mean, it's insane. They'll come up with the littlest things and the most minute details to try to separate us. Oh, we should separate people on religion and stuff like that. Are you serious? Like, we should separate people on status of which shots they got. Like, this is insane. Like, this is our nation right now, and they're doing this erosion of Christianity so that they can continue to further push this agenda of division. And I've had it up to here, okay? I've had it up to here. I've had it so far up, it's like being on the top of Mount Everest, okay? Stacked on top of another Mount Everest with the Mountain K2 on top of it. I had it up to there, okay? I'm sick and tired of the disharmony, the disunity, and I'm sick and tired of our elected officials allowing the crime to continue to go on. I'm sick and tired of people that are not from my community trying to tell me about the crime and dangers in my community and how everything isn't that bad and how these things aren't affecting us. When I can see with my eyes and my experiences in everyday life that these things are affecting me, why are you telling me that it's not affecting me? Okay? Go play Buku the Fool with somebody else, or somebody else is dumb or stupid. Okay? That's what they really think about you. They really think that you're dumb. They really think that you're stupid. They really think that they can tell you whatever is clever and that you're going to go for it, okay? And it's too much. We can't keep going for their BS, you know? It's a problem. And they'll continue to tell us whatever they think sounds good and whatever will help maneuver them into positions of power or keep them into positions of power because, oh, it's not their fault, or, oh, they couldn't do anything about it, when really it's only our elected officials who are in charge of these things, and they're the ones who aren't doing anything. So with that, I'm gonna let you guys go. Remember, encourage everybody that you know to get out there and vote, okay? And make sure that they vote different, vote row B. That's the message to take to everybody this year. Vote different, vote row B. And if you live where I live, vote Marcus C. Williams, okay? Because we're going to do our best to make a difference, because I know that we deserve better, and we need to push for unity, not division, because we need to make America strong again so that we can provide for all of our people that live here. All of our veterans, all of our children, all of our everyday people who work, okay? Everybody that needs assistance, we need to focus on home. Because right now, our house is on fire, and they're trying to have us run around looking crazy while they're stealing everything out that they can, while we're distracted by the fire. Don't be misled by these people. We deserve better. Be blessed and be well. Catch you later.